Unless you've been living under a rock recently, you're likely aware that Marvel has rebooted its X-Men titles, pairing Charles Xavier up with Magneto and other new allies that were once seen as foes of the X-Men as a means of keeping the mutant race alive and well. Based on the direction that the reboot is taking, there is quite a few X-Men fans out there who have speculated theories on what this new kind of mutant society will lead to, and how the more extreme actions of Charles Xavier, alongside Magneto, could have some devastating effects on the rest of the Marvel Universe. So today we are playing a game of hypothetical and counting down the top 10 Omega level mutants that could be evil. The reboot has stressed the importance of Omega level mutants for the future of mutant kind survival, so we can't help but wonder if this new society may push these particularly special mutants in a more nefarious direction. So with that in mind, let's get to our list. Starting us off in at number 10, Monarch. Monarch, aka Jamie Braddock, has quantum reality manipulation abilities. He's the elder sibling of Betsy Braddock, aka Psylocke, and Brian Braddock, aka Captain Britain, and he is also schizophrenic. That, unfortunately, is the reason why he ends up on our list, because he believes the reality he is living within is a dream of his own making. And because of that, he may be easily susceptible to manipulation and taken advantage of. Which, also not cool, guys. That's a scary thought when it comes to an Omega level mutant who possesses terrifying power. I mean, he is capable of resurrecting the dead and transforming living beings into completely different forms. Of his abilities, his sister Psylocke once said, I quote, "Power runs deep in our family. He got the full measure, the ability to pull the quantum strings that define casualty. He got himself so tangled he'll never twist free." Yikes. Moving on to number 9, we have Storm. Storm is by no means an evil mutant. She is a tried and tested member of the X-Men and has always fought for the greater good, whether that was protecting innocent mutants or human lives. But now that the X-Men have become more extreme in their methods and have developed a specific society with specific rules on Krakoa, it wouldn't be surprising to see Storm turn into a militant enforcer of Charles Xavier's. And in the past, primarily in alternate universes, Storm has turned evil. She once killed Black Panther and his entire family and took over Wakanda for herself. That being said, she does seem to be one of the X-Men members who are more so pragmatic and wise, and we believe there would be a minimal chance of the weather manipulator turning a nefarious cheek. Moving on to number 8, Franklin Richards. Okay, so it seems pretty unrealistic that Franklin Richards would turn evil, but in the eyes of the X-Men and those with allegiance to Krakoa, he could very well be perceived as an antagonistic force thanks to his allegiance with the human race. He's currently sticking with his fam at the Fantastic Four, and considering he's so young, there's still a lot of time for him to develop his own opinions. So many see Franklin as a bit of a wild card in terms of the upcoming mutant stories. Cyclops was even trying to sway him, or rather sway his family, into having him join on Krakoa. Now that in itself is a bit of a threat. Franklin has always proven to be one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe, capable of warping reality on a massive scale. He once even created a pocket universe that was an exact replica of the 616. And he did that subconsciously. In other words, he is a wickedly powerful kid. Moving on to number 7, Elixir. Elixir, aka Josh Foley, is an Omega level mutant capable of biological manipulation. Prior to Josh's powers manifesting, he was a member of the anti-mutant group, the Reavers. Whether or not you read that as he might have some internalized mutant phobia issues, he's often found other reasons to be an outsider in the mutant community. As a side effect of having to be electrically shocked awake in order to heal himself, all of his skin and hair transformed into a reflective gold color. He dated a teacher at the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning that briefly ostracized him, and he's been through a handful of traumatic experiences since joining up with the mutant team. Aside from his capability to heal others, he can also pull off the reverse of that. He can manipulate life forces, cause boils and welts to appear, create tumors, and even cause death. Here's hoping that he stays as a good intended mutant. Moving on to number 6, we have Kid Omega. Kid Omega doesn't have the most squeaky clean reputation. He had quite the rebellious streak back in the day when he first joined up with the Xavier Institute, and started up his own gang called the Omega Gang. An incredibly powerful telepath, he is a troublemaker and a little bit of a bully at first. But then it evolves into him forcing his gang to take the mutant drug kick, resulting in them accosting a gang of humans, maiming some and killing others. He also rallies up other students in a riot with him over Xavier's policies at the school. At one point, when he was fed up with people, he decided to exile himself on Krakoa altogether, where he would encounter the Phoenix Force. Now these days, he is loyal to Krakoa now that it is a sovereign nation. But hey, if his past is a sign of anything, we might have something to worry about in the future. And at number 5, Legion. Legion, aka David Haller, is the son of Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller. He suffers from dissociative identity disorder, and his mutation is best described as power manifestation. Capable of altering reality and time on a cosmic scale, he is held back due to his multiple personalities. Now each personality manifests a different power, and there are a lot of personalities that he's exhibited over the years. He's got over 1,000 of them and counting. David's allegiance, according to House of X issue 1, is unknown. Last time we saw Legion Allegiant, things weren't looking too hot for him. He had been transported to a different reality created by X-Man, placed in the Danger Room prison complex in solitary confinement, although he managed to control and alter other prisoners' memories. He was eventually returned to the real world in Age of X-Man Omega Issue 1. Needless to say, his stance on the current state of mutant-human relations is ambiguous at best. Up next, number 4, Jean Grey. Remember the Phoenix Saga? Yeah, we do too. While Jean Grey is inherently good, we've seen how absolutely destructive her powers can be when merged with the Phoenix Force. And it's worth mentioning that Jean is the only character to ever force the Phoenix Force against its own cosmic will to do her bidding without her even being its host at the time. Now, her control over the Phoenix Force when bonded has varied over the years. Regardless, those facts are all pretty scary if one were to suggest that Jean's capacity for acting in more nefarious fashion was realized, especially if it is under the orders or manipulation of Charles Xavier, since realistically, we've already seen him turn to a bit of a darker side. Yeah. Moving on to number 3, Vulcan. Vulcan is a mutant who can manipulate energy on a grand scale. He's also the younger brother of Cyclops and Havoc, although he had a much different upbringing than his brothers. Before he was born, his mother, Catherine Summers, was abducted by the Maestro of the Shi'ar Imperium and killed, and Vulcan, aka Gabriel Summers, was removed from her body and put into an incubator accelerator. Sent to Earth to be a slave, he would eventually escape. Now, in the years that followed, he played both the role of friend and foe to the X-Men. Even before the Dawn of X reboot, Cyclops still believed that Vulcan was a threat. Yet after Krakoa became a sovereign nation, he was confirmed to be back on Earth and loyal to Krakoa. Moving on to number 2, Exodus. Exodus is a mutant who was born in 12th century France, first appearing in Marvel's panels in X-Factor issue 92 in 1993. He possesses a variety of powers, with his most prominent being telekinesis. In addition to that, he is telepathic, immortal, can teleport, has regenerative healing factor, and superhuman physical attributes. He's also traditionally a supervillain, whose high power levels are likely due to tampering from Apocalypse. In the 20th century, Exodus was freed from a crypt Apocalypse had trapped him within for centuries. He was freed by Magneto, who then took him over to the Acolytes. He actually ended up succeeding Magneto as the leader of the Acolytes when Magneto was incapacitated. Now, despite his villainous past, Exodus, along with several other villainous mutants, came to Krakoa, the now independent state of mutants, and was allowed to stay there as long as he adhered to the laws of Krakoa. He is actually a part of the Quiet Council who oversees the mutant nation, alongside Mystique and Mr. Sinister in the winter chapter of the Council. And finally, in at number 1, Magneto. Magneto is the most obvious answer for the number 1 spot on our list. Why? Well, because for years he was the penultimate X-Men villain. Although, to call him evil is a little questionable. He's always been a villain with a point, with his main goal being to protect the mutant race, although he kinda does it in a pretty bad way. This is where it gets a little morally gray. Magneto regards mutants as the evolutionary superior to human beings. He does not believe that a peaceful mutant-human coexistence is possible. Initially, he wanted to conquer the world to allow mutants to replace humans as the dominant species. So you can see why he bumped ideologies with Charles Xavier in the past. But now that the two have teamed up and are presiding over Krakoa as part of the Quiet Council, Magneto's influence over Xavier's recent revelation that he and the X-Men have exhausted all other options in seeking equality for mutants could lead to catastrophic consequences, not just for mutant kind but for the rest of the Marvel universe. We've already seen some tension grow. And case in point, when Magneto, acting as the Krakoan ambassador, spoke with other ambassadors from across the globe, made the point of stating that, while he was not threatening them in any way, they needed to acknowledge that they, I quote, have new gods now. Yeah, talk about foreshadowing. Alright, there we have it, friends. What other Omega level mutants do you think could be swayed to the dark side? I mean, there's not that many left. Kinda covered the majority of them. But regardless, give us a shout in those comments below. And hey, if you think any other X-Men members should be considered an Omega level mutant, give us a shout in the comments below too. I'd love to hear your opinion on things. If you guys like this video, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button, share it with a friend, and hey, subscribe to Top 10 Nerd if you haven't already. We'd love it if you stuck around some more. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. Kid Omega doesn't have the most squeaky clean reputation. Did that make sense? Jean is the only character to ever force the Phoenix Force against its own cosmic will to do her bidding, let's say that. Regardless, those facts are all pretty scary if one were to suggest that Jean's capacity for acting in a more nefarious fashion could come to Regardless, all those facts are pretty scary if one were to suggest that Jean's capacity for acting in more nefarious And who then took him over to the Acolytes? He actually ended up succeeding Magneto as the leader of the Acolytes when Magneto